Right, so those of you who have seen a few of my other videos, you'll know that my custom DAC has died. And so I went back to ESS Dac. Here it is under this custom takeoff board here, because I'm not using any of the original designed output stages. I'm using Ivan's 1-29 with a dual it's got a dual primary. It's got a dual primary? Yes, it's got a dual primary. 1-29 IV stage with dual primary. Shark off resistors on the output side. I've been faffing about with these. Maybe want to go to 30 ohms. That's just all I've got for now, but they're pretty much well matched. Those are 0.02%. Right, back to ESS Dac. So there's been a lot of talk about, on YouTube about Ian's new clocks, and Gabby posted some really good videos about them, and I've watched them a few times, and I thought, well, tell with it, I'll try it now that I've got ESS Dac here. That's all I've got for now. So I tried it, and I got the clock. I got the 45 megahertz clock. Can't really see it in there. Maybe down here you can see it. I'm not sure if we can see it. It is there. Let's see if I can get that to focus. Anyway, yeah, there we go. Oh, we'll see. I'm not sure if anyway, got that clock, put it in, and immediately yeah, sounds fantastic. The long and short of it is, I had Andre Mori clocks on here, and I've compared them A/B comparison, and I prefer Ian's clocks. However, I will say that if you're running ESS Dac without UC Pure everywhere, okay, so on this setup, I have Live Pure 4 with the ultra caps on these three, Live Pure 4 supplies on these three 3.3 volt supplies. On these two here, I've now got UC Pures 3.3 and 3.3. And I've got a UC Pure on the supply to the 5 volt supply to the Station Pi Pro. If you do not have UC Pure there, and there, forget it. It does not sound as good. I'll repeat. If you run this DAC without UC Pure here on the clean side of the FIFO Pi and on your reclock Pi, it will not sound as good as running this DAC with Andre Mori clocks. I hope that is clear. So, however, the clocks, the Andre Mori clocks that I was running, I was using a 15 volt UC Pure supply. So I guess the equivalent on this DAC, you're going to need to put the FIFO, and with the, when I was running the UC Pure Andre Mori clocks with UC Pure, I was running this FIFO with a Live Pure 4 supply. So I guess what I'm saying is this DAC is very sensitive to whatever's, if you want to call it jitter, let's call it jitter. This DAC of Ian's is very sensitive to any noise. So the cleaner you can make the power supply to this DAC, the better it will sound. I will also say that this DAC does not sound anywhere near as good without this RV stage. Okay, let me rephrase that. This DAC sounds better with this RV stage than it does with Ian's RV stage. Although Ian's RV stage is very good, it's not as good as this active RV stage from Ivan. I will say this is ultra high end. I don't really know. I can't even begin to tell you how much it costs to make this thing. and how much effort it goes into it. But it is that's a 10-minute video on its own. But this DAC sounds better with this than the output stage of Ivan's, and in any configuration. Okay. I will also say that with this DAC, the performance of my system has been greatly enhanced by sorting out the input. So I've gone over from 2 Cisco switches. One had a heavily modified power supply, and then there's the other one. So there was a single one like this, a normal, which is my just my network switch that fed a modified version of that, the power supply, and it sounded good. But I went over to this effort here. So there was two of those Cisco switches, one with a modified power supply and one that was driven by a NUC. The whole system was driven by a NUC. The NUC's gone out, and I've replaced it with this massive motherboard here and this Intel network card, and that is being fed by this, I think it's iPlex ATX converter. So I've got a 200 watt 19 volt DC power supply feeding this ATX converter here, ATX power supply that feeds this motherboard, and then I've got a DD DAC 12 volt power supply, linear power supply, feeding this Buffalo switch here. And I will say that this has made an enormous difference to my system. This has increased. This is really, I've been surprised. So replaced the NUC by this, and yeah, night and day, absolute night and day. So anyone who wants to ask some questions about that, I'll try and tell you what I've done. It's just a very high spec gaming motherboard with an i5 processor in it. It's got a couple of, you can see some very low latency RAM over there. I've only running 4 gigs here, two gig RAM sticks, and an SSD, and that network card. There it is there. And if you guys can see it very well on that motherboard, that's made a huge improvement to the system. So yeah, just an update about Ian's clocks. UC Pure clock, that's a 45. I've got a 45 megahertz clock in there. I'm going to get a 49 later on if they're still available. But sounding fantastic. And I'll go as far as to say, in this DAC, this clock sounds better than Andre Maury's clock. I know I'm probably going to get hung for it, but yeah, that's my impression so far. Still, I've only had it for 4 or 5 days. I'll update soon.